speak today a little bit about the idea of Gilgulim and neshamas and what we do here in this world, actions in this world. We spoke about before the shir was very relevant to the shir. In the Svarim Kadoshim it says, why did Hashem create the world? Why did he create man? Man is a very interesting creation. On one side, his body is the lowest thing in the whole of creation. On the other side, his soul is the highest thing in the whole of creation. We're talking about underneath godliness. The neshama is the highest. The neshama of a person is the highest thing in the whole creation. So this integration between the physical body and this high neshama is a very strange thing. We're going to start off by saying that when Hashem created the whole world, He created it, He created it missing, lacking. He didn't create it perfect. We already spoke about this a number of times, that every day in creation there's a lack, that Hashem on purpose did not fill this lack properly. Why? So when Shabbos comes, Hashem will say, Sheba Elokim Lasos, that the man should have something to do in this world. That's why He made it not perfect. What are we doing here? In general, this world is made up from the breakings, the shvarim of Olam Tovavo. The worlds of Tovavo were worlds that created before this world, and these worlds had very great light with very, very small kelim, very small vessels, and the vessels broke. So Hashem came and He took the broken vessels, and He created from these broken vessels the world of Toh. The world of Toh. This world, sorry. And He created this world for its... He created this world in a way that it should be able to exist in the beginning, but not perfect. And He put man inside, that man should be able to fix this world, to mitaken is a olam malchus shakai, to be able to fix this world, because Hashem did not finish it on purpose. When He created the world, He didn't make it perfect. Now, if the world were made perfect, then men would have nothing to do in this world. So everything that we do in this world, we have to have the kavana that we're bringing the tikkun of the creation of the world. With this, we take the sparks that were inside the depths of the klippus, and we bring them into the world of kedusha until these nitzotzos are finished. And when all these nitzotzos are finished from the klippus, then the gula will come, and Mashiach will come. So everyone comes here in this world, as we spoke about a number of times, with a tzelem, and this tzelem is all the tikkunim that a person has to do in his whole world every single day. And therefore, the tzelem is called midas yamai, the measure of my days. When a person is born, he's born with like a certain sack, so to speak, of the nitzotzos that a person has to fix up in this world. And if you fix it up, in that day, so then that day stands in your package of days. And if you didn't fix this day, then that day goes off sad and is waiting until you do tshuva, till the day gets fixed by a person's tshuva. That's what it means. Avram Zakin Bab Yamim, that all of his days he came when he died with all of his days into Shemayim. So what happened? There's a certain Manda Amar that says that Avram Avinu was only recognized Hashem when he was 48, and some say that it was when he was 3. Now, really, he recognized when he was 3, but it took a process until he got complete recognition of Kadosh Baruch Hu until he was 48. So, what happened to all those days before he recognized Hashem? Also, those days were fixed when Avram Avinu did tshuva after he had a full recognition of Kadosh Baruch Hu. So, even those days could be fixed. When a person does mistakes by accident or whatever, he does. Once he recognizes a mistake and he does tshuva, he could fix even the days that he messed up. Every one of us could do this with tshuva. We could fix the days that we did wrong things in. And the idea is that these days that we fix, they're not separate from these days that a person they were ruined. Just you build these days from the broken klippus that were They were left. Now, the idea is not to separate yourself from these broken days. The idea is to fix them. When a person develops himself, he develops himself also in the schus, so to speak, of these ruined days. We can't cancel out the bad days. We have to be megayer them. We have to bring them to be Jewish, bring them to be good. There are two ways to do it. Either we learn from the bad to the opposite, or we take that itself and we turn it into goodness. For example, it could be a person does chesed, as a person who doesn't believe in Hashem. So it doesn't mean he has to cancel out the chesed. The chesed is good. He has to take this chesed and he has to direct it towards Hashem. But if a person was the opposite of kind, he was very stern. He said, "Oh, I don't want to be like the way he used to be." He wants to be the opposite. So it's a different way. It's not one way is to take the bad and to turn that bad into good, to direct it towards kedusha, or he could learn from his bad midas to his good midas, to say, "I want to do the opposite," and turn it around. Also, when a person thinks about his past and he doesn't like what he did in the past, so this also brings a certain form that pushes him ahead. So for this reason also Hashem made the idea of Gilgulim. Gilgulim, as we said before, is to give a new chance to the neshama. If he wasn't going in the right way, he could still turn around and be good. There's something very interesting. That how can a person recognize a Gilgul? How can he recognize that there is such a thing as a Gilgul? How do we see it, and why is it the words of the Arizal relate to us so well? The reason is that the Arizal says that if there's a neshama that sinned in a certain area, when he goes back into this world, on the second time, or the next time, he's going to have a nisayon like the sin that he sinned the first time, similar to the sin. So if there's a situation where a person, if the second Gilgul would have no connection to the first Gilgul and have different nisyonos, different avodos, different difficulties, then you wouldn't be able to know that there's a Gilgul. How would you be able to connect this life to the previous life? But since we could see similarities from previous times, so we could recognize the concept of a Gilgul. 2 years ago I was in Los Angeles, I was in a seminar, and there was a certain professor that deals with bringing people back to their previous Gilgulim through hypnosis, I guess, something like that. And he dealt with the famous actors, and his name is Professor Finkelstein. So he told us that when people come to him and he brings them back into their previous Gilgulim, he can often solve a lot of phobias and fears or other. He told us a story about a certain actor that came to him that didn't have a fear of going into trains. So when he brought him back in his previous Gilgul, he remembered in his previous Gilgul that he was a child in the Holocaust when they're driving in the trains in the ghettos. So his mother wanted to take him out through the window, and as she pushed him out of the window, the train drove by a pole, or electrical pole, and he got killed. So in his next Gilgul, he came with this fear. And this actor was Jewish. Also in his previous Gilgul, he was Jewish. Now, if a Jew becomes a goy in a second Gilgul, it's a Yerida in his madriga. Sometimes one who's in the first Gilgul is a boy, he could become a girl in the second Gilgul. Sometimes if he was a girl in the first Gilgul, he could become a boy in the second Gilgul. It depends on different things that he did. It could be even worse though, if he could become an animal or a plant, or he could even turn a second Gilgul to be an inanimate object like a rock. There is such a thing where humans can have a Gilgul in inanimate objects. Ben Ish Chai tells one of his Sfarim that there was a certain Jew that learned Torah all the time, and he had brothers who did business. it seems like this story is about himself, because the story is very similar to a story that happened in his own life. There was a certain day that his company, the government decided they weren't paying enough taxes, and they put him as the president of the company. So even though he wasn't working in the company, the government took him and put him away in jail. And the people in the jail saw that they weren't such a bad people. So he gave him a special cell, and he also brought him kosher food. The people in the jail, the guys in charge of the jail, and he sat there for a month. And he sat and he wrote. At the end of the month, he had a sefer that was ready from his Chiddushei Torah. At the end of the month, the one in charge of the jail came to him and said, "It seems to be there's a mistake. We're going to let you go." So he left the jail and he was surprised. Why did he go in and why did he come out? It was a very strange story that happened to him. Why did all this happen? He was very confused. So at night, he had a dream. He saw a person came to him with a very big white beard, and he asked this man, said, "Kvod Rav, why was I sitting in jail? What did I do wrong? Nothing happens just stam. Everything's Mida connected. Mida, what did I do?" So he says, "Look back." So he looks back and he sees a bunch of little children, nice children running into him, and they're all saying Abba, Abba. So since this dream bothered him very much, he went to the Rav of the city and he asked him, he says, "This is my dream. What's the explanation of the dream?" So the Chacham said, in the walls of the Beisar, in the walls of the jail that you were in, there were sparks of Kedusha, and these sparks were Gilgulim, and they needed tikkunim. So who goes into these jails? All sorts of bad people. They can't be metakin these nitzotzos. In Shamayim, they wanted that you should go in there, and you should write a sefer. And the schus of you writing that sefer takes these nitzotzos out of the walls, and now in Shamayim they're considered your children. So these children that you saw are really your children. These sparks of kedusha that with your kedusha you were able to take out of the walls. So from here we see every place that a person reaches, every place a person goes, he has a job, he has something to do there. If you wonder, why did I get to this place and why didn't I get that place, sometimes Ashkacha takes you to very strange things you never imagined ever getting to. And some plane has to land in a very strange place, or all of a sudden you get confused and you find yourself in some strange place. This is all Ashkacha Pratas. Especially if a person's a Talmid Chacham and he gets to a new place, he's mechuyev to learn some Torah there, because the Torah that he learns there is mevar kedusha from that place. It takes out the kedusha from that place, which is good, brings it up, is metakin it. Now pay attention to something very interesting. The Rav in the story said, "These are your children. These are your children that you taught them Torah. You were mevar them, you were metakin them through the learning of Torah that you were learned in the jail." Now, the Rav explains in Shar Gilgulim something very interesting. In Saba de Mishpatim, Saba there explains this concept called tikla. Tikla is a balance, is a scale. Up above, there's a scale. And these scales have in it all the neshamas that have to come down to this world. From this tikla, though, it's right in the middle between the kedusha and the tumah. If there's a certain angle or one side is stronger than the other, so one types of neshamas will go over to the other side. If there's an angle on the other side, then the neshamas from one side will go to the other side. What's the dynamics of this? this tikla. It's dependent on the actions of the generation. If there are a lot of people that are doing Ratzon Hashem, there are a lot of couples that need to get holy neshamas. So you need a lot more neshamas on the Kodesh side to give to these holy people. And if it's the opposite, where there are a lot of sinners, and there aren't enough people that are Kodesh, so we need, and there are a lot of zivugim on the tzad of Tuma, so we need to take the holy neshamas and put them into Tuma. So Saba says in Saba de Mishmatim, this concept is called Timas Ashukim ve'en lehem menachem. The tears of the poor people that don't have anything to console them. So what's the reason why it's so bad? Is what's the problem on the neshama? What did the neshama do? It's not the punishment of what did the neshama do to be punished with this punishment, to be brought into the body of a Talmud person, to be born with Talmud parents, people that aren't doing mitzvahs. But there must also be a reason, even for that, even for this neshama to go into this other side. There's a general principle that when there's no way to explain, there's no way to explain something through our understanding, that's called ashuk. For example, the argument between Hashem and the moon, where the moon said 2 kings can't use 1 crown, so Hashem couldn't convince the moon. And at the end, Hashem says, "Bring kapara on me that I was memayit yoyach. I minimized the light of the sun, of the moon." Hashem is kiviyachol saying, "I did something wrong. I need tshuva." Could there be such an idea that Hashem did something wrong? It's not that it's not like he didn't do something wrong. Just the idea is that he can't explain to the moon in a way that the moon could understand why he minimized the moon. Sometimes we can't understand the din v'cheshbon, we can't understand the mahalach. So then, in that situation, we're called ashuk. We're called suffering. We can never understand. In the end, we're going to understand. So also here, the neshama can't understand why it needs to go from the side of Kedusha into the side of Tumah, because of the actions of the generation. So the reason is very simple. We don't have any holy. We don't have any place to put you in. We don't have any place to put you in a holy zivug. There's simply no place. Numbers. Sometimes there is a malach called Laila, and this malach is in charge of taking the neshamas into the zivug of people. And imagine for yourself, he has a certain amount he has to do every night. He has to decide where he's putting it. If there's a certain neshama, a very holy neshama, let's say, and there's nowhere to put it because there aren't enough zivugim here in this world, so he has to put it in a place of tumah. But this it says, shalat adam larala, because if this neshama is really a holy neshama, even in these klipas that he goes down into, he's going to wake up there, like Avram Avinu. All of a sudden, I woke up, and he's chozer b'tshuva. Not only is he going to be chozer b'tshuva, but also all the people around him. Now, this is the explanation of the pasuk that this. He thought he was taking the neshama, the holy neshama, and bringing it down into tumah. But really, it's the opposite. He takes out the kedusha out of the tumah, and brings it up. Sometimes it could be the opposite, and a tumah dika neshama goes into the kedusha. It could be there'll be a child. They'll be born from a child of Rabbanim and all sorts of holy people, and they could go off in the opposite direction. And here in this generation, we have a lot of them in both directions. We have neshamas. People go from Torah mitzvahs. They're born from parents that don't learn Torah mitzvahs, and they go and become religious. And sometimes they're opposite. That people that come from very good families, and they go off. They grew up in houses of tzaddikim, and they cross the other side. A few days ago, they asked that I should give a drosha in a certain house. So it's a bunch of people, and tons of people were drinking beer and smoking cigarettes, and everyone was grew up from good families, but they went down. I wasn't able to speak even one word. They didn't even want to hear. So I said a few words here and there, but nothing. So came from a person who keeps on calling and asks some questions every so often. Everything has a reason for it, but you could see the big nefila. You see that it happens, but when you bump into it, it's very hard. You can actually see it. In any case, the Rizal says something very interesting. This tikla, this balance, since it's dynamic, it's not just that it's dynamic, but even a river that flows into the sea, you think it's just the river flowing into the sea. Also, the sea goes back into the river a little bit. There's the delta of the river, which has both types of animals from both the river and the river and the ocean. Just like the river goes into the ocean, so the ocean also goes into the river. It's the same thing. Also with this tikla. Just like there is an angle where one neshamas from one side will go to the other side, but still, there are certain neshamas that also go to the other direction. It's always moving, going from one side to the next. What will happen is in the center, like there's a certain meeting where these neshamas meet. From where the neshamas go from one side to the next, they meet in the center. This is something very amazing. There's something very interesting what the Rizal says, and we're going to explain afterwards how it fits into the world. The Rizal says, neshama that goes from the klipa to kedusha, he bumps into 9 neshamas, let's say, that's coming from the kedusha to the tuma, and they meet here in the middle. He meets the first one along the way, and he says, "Where are you going, my sister?" And she says, I'm going where everyone else is going, to all the parties, all everything. Seems like it'll be good there. So the Kodesh Neshama says, "Come with me. It's better to go back to the Kodesh. I was there. It wasn't. This place is really bad. Listen to what I'm saying to you. You could attach to me. I'll take you, and we'll both go." So she joins. And they go over to the side of Kedusha. And now another place from Kedusha to Tuma is going over to Tuma. Now, since he convinced this first one, the first one has the power to convince the second one, and the second convinced the third, and the third convinced the fourth, and they can convince all of them, and they could all go into Kedusha. The Rizal says when these neshamas are born here in this world, this went from Klipa to Kedusha will be a very big rav. And those that went from the Kedusha to the Tuma, those will be his students. Where the first one will be the most special student, and they'll be able to teach the rest of them. And the second one will be second in command, and second in closeness to the Rav, and then so on and so forth. There won't be anyone else to listen to. The 10th will be the simplest student. He's going to bring the tea and coffee to the shul, and he's going to be the simplest person. Let's understand the depth of what the Rizal is saying. The Rizal is saying it doesn't make a difference where you're holding, what your status is. It makes a difference where you're going, which direction you're leading towards. The dynamics of a present, every single existence is the most important thing. If you're in the klipa, if your path is to go to the kedusha, it's very much better than somebody who's in the kedusha but he's already going down. Let's see who saves him. Saves him is a neshama that goes from the klipa to the kedusha. In this world, there are people that will be balei tshuvos, and they already know this world, and they come to a certain situation where they're speaking on the radio, and they're speaking on hidabrut, and going to jails to speak to all sorts of people, and they're going to maybe people speaking in nachlas rocha, and they have the ability to convince to be mashpia on other people, and when someone listens, people that were leaning towards Tuma. They were doing a lot of mitzvahs, but they now want to get Tuma. So those people can actually be convinced by these Rabbanim. And these Rabbanim will bring them back to Kedusha, to strengthen themselves with Kedusha. And you see, the Baal Tshuva in this situation has a very strong power to convince people. It can also be the opposite. A person was in Kedusha, and he goes to the Klipa. There was even a person who opened up an internet website. He was once on the side of Kedusha, and he used to be a Rav, and he fell into the Klipas. And all of his life now, he's trying to convince people. He's trying to convince religious people to become non-religious. Now someone wants to be Choser B'Tshuva, so he's going to come to him and say, listen, I was there. Listen to all the problems that are there. It's not Kedai to be there. And he's going to be the Rav of the Sitra Achra. And people are going to be convinced from them. This whole world is, in this way, is very dynamic, this way and that way. Because of this tikla that happens in relationship to the actions of this world, people of this world. From this, the Rav says, why is it that we find that great tzaddikim are sons of Rashaim Gemurim? Complete Rashaim. Many times we see, that, like Avram Avinu, he's the son of Terach, who was a big priest for Avodah Zarah. He made idols and to machti the rabbi. And in the end, he ended up being a person who started Yiddishkeit. More than that, we have to understand that the klippas themselves have a very strong power to be machti the people. What happened in the end? We see one sin, another sin, caused the Beis HaMikdash to be destroyed. It caused that the Shechina should be in Galus. It caused Hashem to be angry. You look and see the situation. It's very difficult. Most of the world is klipa. There's maybe 7 billion people in the world. How many tzaddikim are there? Very few. Most of the world is in klipa. The secret, the Rav says, is this: through the sin of Adam Rishon, all of the neshamas went into the depth of the klipas. Now we're going to explain what happened by Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon, the Mesa, was a neshama that all the neshamas were inside him. When a person takes a rock and throws on a window, for example, the window will pop, the window will crack, shatter. Now this shatter will have three types of shattering. The upper part will fly out into the street. In the middle, something will be left. After you break the window, something will be left on both sides. And the bottom part will just crack and fall down. Same thing with Adam Rishon. The upper part of the neshama left up before the sin. He left before he could actually sin. Every time that we are about to sin, we should know that we're about to lose part of our neshama.